Well, I'm talking about a more lighthearted topic. We're concerned with the fact that some of us are getting older and dying. So, and we don't have people in place to take over our certification if it happens in midstream. So that's basically, and that's a fact. I mean, we've had I believe two cases where it's actually happened, but it doesn't have to be death. It can be any reason why you can't continue to, do an inspection, or it could be, a number of things that could happen to young people. So I would just like to know how many people in the room are the primary operator of a certified organic operation. Just put up your hands, would you? All right, and how many of you have your secondary contact named on your application and they are qualified to carry out what needs to be done? They understand your operation and they could do the inspection in your place. How many of you have that? I'm not seeing too many.
We got to distinguish between named and competent.
Well,
people named.
They have to be both, though. They have to be both, right? They have to be competent in the fact that if they're named as the secondary contact and they're not able to fulfill the duties that you need to continue a certification, then you're in trouble, because there'll be an interruption in your certification. So it's very important to name someone who is capable of doing it, because if you don't, you could, your family could suffer on account of that, like your wife, your children, whoever depends on that income. So we just want it to be known that in the future, if you don't have someone who's capable, I mean, I've got my wife who knows everything about our operation, so I name her, and I name my youngest son who farms with us because he also knows our operation. So you can name two people. There's nothing wrong with that. But put some thought into who you name as your secondary contact. That's very important. And if you can't come up with anybody, you don't have children, or you're farming by yourself, I mean, you can put some thought into hiring a consultant. But it's almost worth it if that's the case, because I mean, it depends how old you are, I suppose, because age is obviously the biggest concern, but there are other things that can happen. So if you are an operation that's certified organic and you have a little glitch where you can no longer present to an inspector or be there anymore for a while, you might want someone to be there for you, and there is consultants, and I mean, they basically come in and do your inspection for you. They understand your operation, they make it their business too. That's how they make their living. So yes, it will cost you some money, but I know it's out there. It's a service that's provided by some people, and it's probably a valuable service. So that's my first topic. Second question to these same people. How many of you have a transition plan to transition your operation to somebody else at some point in time, so that those acres don't go back into conventional production? Well, it's probably a third or maybe a half of the original group, but if you're young, I suppose maybe you're not giving it much thought. I myself have a plan. I know Jack has a plan. Don has a plan. Who else was it that had a plan? I saw some more other. Randy has a plan. Elliot, you already, yeah. Elliot has the perfect situation because he has, I think, 3 sons farming with him, right? 4, okay. But anyway, that is the ideal situation, I suppose. One drawback of it is, of course, you'll never get rich because you're never going to sell it for big bucks. You're just going to kind of, you might, depending on your operation, you'll be comfortable and you'll be successful, I'm sure. But I think sometimes, and it happens in conventional production too, greed comes into the picture a little bit with some farmers, and I know some farmers don't really encourage their children to become involved because I think they want to sell out at some point. They want to be done with it. And realistically, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work to bring someone new into the operation. and train them, and you know, there's rewards though. I mean, I'm here because my son's at home feeding our cows, which need feeding every day. So, I mean, there comes a point, but it takes a long time before you can, you know, leave someone in that situation and trust that they're going to do a good job. So, I mean, that's the ideal situation, is if you have a family member, you know, but I would just have to say, like, in our situation, we've spent years becoming organic farmers. My land has been certified organic for 24 years, going on 24 years, and I would just roll over in my grave if I knew that it went back to conventional production. And you know, I'm pretty sure most of us feel that way. And so, I mean, it's important to come up with a plan. Like another, you know, I can give you some ideas. I mean, they're ideas that I use on my son, but you could use them on anybody. Like, we pay him a base wage. With him, we give him room and board. But I basically let him have all the profit on any extra value he adds to anything on the farm. If he wants to do square bales and sell them, if he wants to market some beef or pork organically, the premium is his, over and above what I would get if I just sold them live, you know, the way I usually do. It's a considerable premium. I mean, we've done that with our daughter too. And I mean, if somebody wants to work at it, it doesn't have to be a family member. They could come in and market all your stuff and they'll be making way more money than you ever made. But, you know, it takes a little bit of creativity, but that is where the money is. And a lot of us don't have the energy to do it. We just go out and grow crops and grow cattle and, you know, sell them, and, you know, it's a lot of work. But there's a lot more work to be done there, and I think direct marketing is the way to go. So, I mean, that's an option if you have an operation and you don't really have any children that are dying to take it over, then you could involve a marketer and give them some equity in your company as part of their pay, and at some point they would be the owners. But, you know, any way you can do it to keep it organic, I think is definitely worth it. I mean, we have a responsibility to our customers. Like, in most cases, organic consumers are more passionate about organics than we are. Like, that's the kind of people we deal with anyway. They rely on us. And, you know, like they ask you, you got a beef for me this year? You know, repeat pork buyers, and even people who buy large groups of our cattle, they call us, and, you know, I mean, they keep in touch. And, you know, if one day we just shut her down and we're not there anymore, we would be missed. And I mean, we rely on the consumer. So I think we owe it to them to keep going. And the growth in this industry is there, so there's no reason not to. So anyway, that's really all I have to say. I'm sure there's no questions. Oh, Demetria.
So could you explain a little bit more about the issue with when you don't have a secondary contract?
Well, Amanda could probably explain it better, but I think it interrupts your certification, and the crop and storage would probably be okay, but the next one might not.
So like your certificate wouldn't be able to continue, you'd have to start a new application. Like for me, if I want a secondary contract for my dad's operation, then I would have to start a new application.
That's how I understand it. Yeah. So it's an interruption, and it could cost you quite a bit of money. If you've got a good, you know, steady income and everything's going great, and there's just one little glitch, you know, they picked me to do this because I'm old, you know, I got gray hair, and they think I probably should be thinking about these things. But I mean, I do have some reliable people named as secondary contacts, but I didn't really think about it. I just did it because, you know, it was the obvious thing to do, but I didn't really think about it until you know, we've heard of a couple instances where people die, and they didn't have anybody who they could, you know, who could actually represent them and understood their operation. So it's something to think about, that's for sure.
And then what actually happens to the certificate, or what would OCIA's first instinct be when they hear someone passes away? Try to find a legal representative, or?
What we do is we reach out to the operation most of the time to see if, or they would call us to see if there's anybody that's knowledgeable, if anybody's been on the OSP, if anybody's been appointed power of attorney. You know, we've had involved Marnie in a few of these situations that have come up. So we just really try to encourage everybody to have a secondary contact. And like Terry was saying, at least at the very least, it has to be a name. I mean, Jack and Deborah at least are on theirs, and you know, she could be saying, you know, I don't know what the hell Jack was thinking. Here's his stuff.
But it's important to have the name right on there, because it is a legal document in a way, yeah.
It is a legal document, and they don't
And
necessarily.
and you know, then she could at least sell the grain that she has. And if you know, if you have crop in the field, it can be harvested and sold. If it was a situation that you didn't have anything in storage, but you had stuff in the field, that couldn't be dealt with. Correct, Cindy?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the circumstances. Like if something's contracted, that would be under the estate. If it's not contracted or it's in the field, then yeah, then there would have to be getting someone involved who's knowledgeable. And then there's also like a continuing certification in that case of what if there's something in the field.
And it has to be knowledgeable in order to continue the situation. You know, I mean, you could surrender it and still reapply.
But if you're that secondary contact, it would flow seamlessly if you could, you know, demonstrate that you were capable of continuing it. Deborah would become the primary and her kids would become the secondary going forward, and it'd be seamless. Did you have a question?
Well, thinking back to the news that's came across here lately, we're hearing of too many accidents where a whole family's wiped out. Don't they just about need somebody outside the family, immediate family, to
Well,
somehow work in there?
I suppose that would be better, but I mean, realistically, in most cases, it shouldn't happen. But yeah, in a case like that, I guess, you know, that'd be pretty, you know, terrible, obviously. But I guess then it's just a whole different thing, eh? I don't know what you'd do in a case like that. I think, you know.
We've had several instances happen there, Nebraska, and that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, that'd be pretty tragic for sure. Amy?
So you say knowledgeable, what level of knowledgeable? Are we going to say they know exactly where everything is, they know exactly what's in all those forms? Or they just have to be your spouse, you're good to go, who does nothing, and knows nothing?
All of the above.
I would say, Amy, knowledgeable would be, you know, having a pretty good idea what you're doing.
I mean, know where
You
your
know.
records are, know what you're doing, know who you're certified with.
Okay.
You have contracts, you have, you know.
It's certification is a privilege, Amy, and the concept here is chain of custody of someone who is able to responsibly fulfill
That
the
chain of-
the privilege.
So I'm
Chain
going to
of
go home and
custody.
educate for a while.
And so, you know, that person on the contact, Deborah, she's never combined, so we'd have to obviously do something else, but she understands where the record is, and she understands enough about the audit trail that she could guarantee that there was a chain of custody of the integrity behind the thing. That doesn't mean she's gonna go out and chore and feed the calves or combine or market the grain. She could recruit other people to do that, but you know, it's similar to a power of attorney or chain of custody for the organic certification. Similar to Terry on mine, I not only list my wife, but I list my 2 kids who are involved in the operation. you know, for something similar to that, because driving down here, Deborah and I could die. And we have thousands of dollars of inventory sitting on the farm. If the kids had to execute something, they would be able to. They're listed on my certificate. They at least know how to cash checks and pick up money that's laying around.
But that's just something to think about. If you don't have anybody that understands what you're doing at all, maybe you better involve someone. Maybe when you're filling out your applications, or now it's online, it'd be pretty easy actually to involve someone when you're doing it, and then just make sure they know what you're doing, what, you know, understand your operation a little bit. It really wouldn't be that hard to do. You could do it quite easily. So, Jackie?
I'm just curious if any of you that have transition plans have used any resources like Land Nebraska, which is no longer, there's one in Iowa, especially if you don't have kids or they're not interested.
Have you consulted a professional?
I've consulted financial professionals, you know, but we've never, actually we have gone to a transition workshop and you know, listened to some ideas. One thing they tell you to do if you're a family is have a meeting. And you should have a meeting, you know, realistically, once a year. But they say more, you know, but I mean, realistically, you should have a meeting just to kind of, so everybody understands where you're at and kind of what you're looking to accomplish, or where you're looking to, you know, what your plans are, and who wants to be involved, and, you know, it's a good thing to do. We haven't had our meeting yet, though. But we have involved 2 of our sons, and, you know, they all live so close that, I mean, we know what we're doing, and
Sometimes the conversations are harder when they're right there close with you, Terry.
that's true.
Gets you starting to assume.
Yeah, but anyway, everybody's situation is different. That's why I'm not going on and on about what you do. I mean, I just think you got to do it. You got to figure something out. It's something we have to think about for sure. So anyway, if there's no more questions, very much appreciated.